Live from the 25th edition of the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. It's a special night. It marks 25 years of these awards in excellence. And I have with me one such person who's been very much a part of, these events, Mr. Vaidyanathan from IDFC First Bank. Thanks very much for being here, sir. Just, with all that's going around in the world of banking, various regulatory actions, again, fintechs, what do you make of, the current environment for banking, how it's changing, what it means for banks like you, and what is the larger message coming out of these regulatory actions?
Well, the larger message is that people should be more compliant about the way they run their businesses and run it with good controls.
Yeah.
I think it's an important message. But coming back to banking as such, I think things are looking very good with people who work with compliance and controls, and I think the market's really very large.
Yeah. Well, the market is very large, but even for traditional banks like you, for instance, the question of deposits not keeping pace with advances, and if that will eventually slow down the growth of advances, how do you see this playing out? Because, we are in a tight liquidity environment.
You see, if you're a very large bank, like the biggest banks of the country, then of course, you are bound by many of these larger conditions. But for, emerging banks like ours, we still have a large market. We have a large deposit pool. By the way, our deposit is going by 40%, if that impresses you.
Yes. No, it certainly impresses us. But, you don't see any challenges with the regulator saying, deposit needs to catch up the CD ratio, which is very skewed for some banks. What do you make of those comments?
I mentioned that. So, of course, we should always listen to the regulator on these fronts. And I think the entire industry is watching it very closely. And eventually, like I didn't mean it in a lighter way, and I really meant it. If you're a large bank, like State Bank of India and large banks, then of course you're growing with the system largely. And I don't think it's an issue for larger banks. Mid-tier bank, not an issue so much.
Well, we hope it's not the case, Mr. Vaidyanathan. Thank you very much for your time here tonight. Mangalam, you have a guest with you.
I'd like the camera person to first zoom in on the award, the person, and then you pull out, and we have with us none other than the legend himself, Mr. Venu Srinivasan. He's getting the Lifetime Achievement Award here at the 25th EY Awards, Entrepreneurship Awards. Sir, a lifetime of excellence. If you had to sum it up in 3 words, how would you do that?
3 words is difficult, but really thousands of people have worked to build this institution, and therefore I'm receiving it on their behalf.
That's humility, pure humility. But, from where we look at India right now, the opportunities that there are, would it be fair to say that the next 25 years look way more phenomenal than the past 25 years?
I think the last 10 years we have achieved more than we achieved since independence. Therefore, the next 25 years, you can triple that.
So in that situation, what would your goals for TVS itself be? Would you like to grow faster than that? What are the long targets that you would give to your team, the thousands of whom, on behalf of whom you're receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award?
Well, that's for the next management to decide. I have stepped back, and I hope they will also triple the business. If India is going to triple, they should also triple the business.
If there's one thing that you believe that should stay constant for the next 20 years, and one thing that we should actually cut back on, or some of the risks that you foresee, what would it be going forward?
See, the world is a VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's crisis after crisis. In such an environment, agility is important, innovation is important. You cannot just do it by the hard grind that we did to get here. So the next 25 years, the space of change is going to become 5 times or 10 times. And therefore, agility and innovation is the only thing that will keep any company and the country going.
And one major trend that you foresee, which will be an important one for your industry, your business, that you are also embarking on right now, electric vehicles is one of them. The others would be what?
Green mobility and artificial intelligence. I think these are the 2 things that will drive the mobility business, but artificial intelligence will be driving every business.
And what is it that you're specifically doing on artificial intelligence to get the efficiencies in your organization?
Well, I think that is for the next generation to answer that question.
All right, we will. Any message for the next generation?
I think they'll have to work at twice the clock speed we worked at, and it'll 50% more. So it's going to be rapid change and accelerating change.
All right, thank you so much once again. Congratulations. It's the award which gets honored by being given to you, sir. Thank you so much. A Lifetime Achievement Award, that is Mr. TVS Venu Srinivasan. Thank you. With that, it's back to you, Ritu. You have someone special with you as well.
Oh, yes, I do, Mangalam. I have with me Sandeep Ghosh, who's the country head for Visa in India. Very much in the news. But Mr. Ghosh, let me start by asking you, one of the biggest success stories to come out of India has been the digital payments. And, for players like you that have traditionally been seen as plastic card players, what does the future hold? How are you evolving business to adapt to this new digital-first India?
So our business, while cards are associated with plastic or metal cards, our business is all about digital payments, and we are kind of indifferent in terms of form factors. We're seeing robust growth in the marketplace, and in a sense, the fact that people are moving away from cash, businesses, individuals are moving away from cash to digital forms of payment is a huge positive for us in this market.
What are some of the bigger trends playing out? Because, for a country like India, cash remains king, even though the volume of digital payments is going up significantly, largely thanks to UPI. But what are some of the larger trends you're seeing playing out in this payments industry you're in?
So that's what actually excites us, that despite this migration from cash to digital, India is still a 65% cash economy. And we reckon that about $600-700 billion of cash payments will migrate to digital payments in the course of the next 3 years in this marketplace. So that's what makes it so exciting. There is no doubt about the fact that UPI has been at the forefront of this growth, but cards have also registered a very, very healthy growth rate. And it's not, again, just about cards or UPI, it's also other forms of digital payment. It's not just about domestic digital payments, it's also about cross-border payments. So again, I would just say that what's happening in India is actually a playbook for what should be happening everywhere else in the world. We're kind of leading the way. Obviously, our government and regulators have been at the forefront of a lot of this. For example, we were one of the first countries in the world to make tokenization mandatory, which actually also then ensures a more secure environment for payments. So all in all, robust growth, increased focus on security and trust, because that's sort of the cornerstone of payment. So, again, exciting times for us.
Since you brought up the regulator, let me ask you about the recent action on Visa when it comes to the BPSP payments. Would you like to clarify what exactly were the concerns that have been raised, why these transactions were stopped?
So, in a simple way, I'd say that, the media, in some sense, got this wrong. Commercial cards are very much an acceptable form of B2B payments. There are some specific concerns that were raised, and those are being addressed in the appropriate forum. But there is absolutely no restriction on the use of commercial cards per se. There is no restriction on businesses using cards to make payments. It is about specific role of intermediaries in specific flows, which has raised some concerns, and those are being addressed in the appropriate forum.
But is the feedback from RBI that these curbs would be lifted soon, and how much of your business is impacted by these B2B card payments for non-authorized vendors getting affected?
So I think that's a question that is best addressed to the regulator, and the ecosystem participants would have to get the regulator comfortable before there is any change, and we're working with them on that.
But what is the volume of business that would have been affected because of the RBI curbs?
I'm not really at liberty to talk about that, and I wouldn't know about other participants, who would be impacted by this. But again, it is something which is, like I said, being addressed in the appropriate forum. It's a fraction of the overall digital payments. It's a fraction of commercial cards. So again, something that is being sort of taken up at the appropriate forum by all stakeholders, mind you, which is banks, networks, fintechs, and I'm sure we'll come to a fair landing in a matter of time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ghosh, for being so candid with us. On that note, I'm going to toss it right back to my co-anchor, Mangalam.
Thank you.
Well, Ritu, you know, the word around the street, intelligence, chips, and the sort of strong tailwind, sudden tailwind that all the IT pack has gotten. With the Nasdaq closed at a record high yesterday as well. So I have with me none other than Mr. Deshpande of Persistent Systems joining in. I mean, there's this sudden, you know, gush of wind which has hit the IT space, so to say. Yes?
Yes, I think there's a lot of interest in AI. And we have the largest number of people trained on AI across the world, so we definitely have a good opportunity to build out the AI boom that is expected to happen in the next few years.
What do you think India has to do in this AI world to capitalize on the growth just the way we did earlier, the likes of your company, Infosys, TCS, the big IT companies in India? Do you think they have it in them and there are things that they can do to capitalize on the growth that is there from AI as well?
I think the AI growth is going to be very multidimensional. There are going to be many aspects of AI. And of course, the Indian IT companies are well placed for a set of AI projects that will come anyway. In terms of what India needs to focus on, I think research is something that we need to invest in a lot more. And AI is all about data. So having clean quality data about us in our systems so that AI is about our data and our world would be equally important. So I think trying to figure out how do we make our data available in a responsible next.
You know, moving away from AI into the more traditional forms of IT business itself, do you think that we are now looking at some green shoots in terms of order inflows, demand, and deal wins that are coming in with margin improvement, etc.? How do you view it from your lens right now?
No, so I'm really not on the operating side anymore, but we are seeing good activity in the market at the moment. There is a lot of action in the market. And yes, we are seeing good deal wins. And yeah, I mean, if you have good business, then it is, margins can be improved if that situation is good right now.
And finally, I can't let you go without asking you about NVIDIA. That's the big craze here, right? What will it take for you know, some of the other companies to come around and do something that NVIDIA is doing? How long is the runway that they have right now? What's the head start that they have as compared to others?
So I think they have a 2-year head start is how I see this. There are lots of people who are implementing or trying to implement. One, building better chips and figuring out how existing chips can be used for AI. But their GPUs have really been in the market for a long time. And all of a sudden, they have gotten repurposed for AI. So now they are definitely in a driver's seat at the moment.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Deshpande, for joining in. Hope one day some of the Indian companies also take the driver's seat as well. Thank you so much for joining in. With that, we will hand it over back to you, Ritu. I believe you have someone with you as well right now.
Yes, the dawn of the non-banking finance companies, shadow banks as they used to be called. Mr. Sanjeev Bajaj, thank you very much for being here. And let me start with that. Recently, we heard the regulator say shadow banks should come out of their own shadow. You think it's time for the NBFC sector to be a more mature, a bigger player in the ecosystem to come out of its own shadow, reduce dependence on banks like the Deputy Governor is pointing out?
So, you know, depending on what time of the day, the shadow runs ahead of the person, and I can tell you definitely a bunch of NBFCs are already doing that. May not be in size, but if you look at their innovation, if you look at their agility, you look at the robustness with which they've built businesses, definitely they're competing with the best of banks.
Well, they definitely are competing, but his comment was more to do with, for instance, the over-dependence on borrowings from banks, and that may lead to contagion risks and, you know, over-dependence and so on and so forth. And you were one of the people who's proposed that there should be a liquidity line for NBFCs, just like there is for banks from RBI. You know, any forward movement from all of these suggestions the industry has been making?
So the industry will represent on a number of these points, as the DG did mention that day. The point is correct that as you're getting NBFCs to grow larger, they must diversify their sources of borrowing as well. Otherwise, you are creating concentration risk. But at the same time, you must have greater avenues to borrow from. And that's where the development of our corporate debt market is very important. An emergency credit line from the RBI creates confidence in the market, especially when you have times of tight liquidity. So that's not so much a line to be used all the time, but it's more to give a confidence to whether it's borrowers, whether it's other lenders to the NBFCs, that there is an RBI that has got your back. So it's more from that point of view, like it exists for other banks as well. And RBI, to be fair to them, offered this as a line through COVID as well.
Yeah, but do you expect that cost of borrowing to remain at the current or sort of higher levels for the time being until we start to see the rate cycle turn?
So 2 points. One is, as we can see, and I'm not an economist or an expert in this, but we believe that the rates have peaked. Of course, there is significant uncertainty with the Western world, whether mild recession in Europe, a softer return is what they are now talking about. The war still, multiple wars continue. So let's not forget that uncertainty remains, but we are hopefully at the peak of the interest rate cycle, which means sometime later this year, rates should start going down. So that's the first trigger. Second is there is always a lag in transmission. And that's why if you see in the last couple of quarters, on the deposit side as well, on the lending side as well. So the catch-up will also take some time.
Sure. Broadly, some of the concerns, for instance, that have been highlighted by the regulator, again, on unsecured lending. Bajaj was one of the first ones to highlight that, there is some problem in this area. They're going to go slow on lending for that segment. How does the portfolio perform since, and you think these higher risk weights, even in your borrowing from banks, how has that affected business?
So we went very early, as you said, almost 4 quarters ago, and we cut down on some of our, what we thought was a greater risk, the portfolio. And that's why our portfolio is doing fine. But till the additional steps that RBI took on higher risk weightages and then more tighter regulations now, we could still see the greater stress in the industry. That seems to be starting to normalize now, but we'll have to wait another quarter or two.
Just a final word on what's going on with Paytm. What are the larger implications for the financial ecosystem from this, the lessons to be learned?
So, it's still something that's going on. So, to not be fair without knowing the whole picture to answer. But I think one thing that all of us as players in this industry have to know is we have a huge long-term opportunity. And that is there for the capable players. But you have to ensure robustness in regulatory compliance, in your control systems, in your risk matrix. Forget what the regulator says, it's for your own good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bajaj, for your time here. Thank you. Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a short break, but don't go anywhere. We're back with more news and updates right after. I have with me who's one of the doyens of Indian banking ecosystem, also now, of course, on the board of Reliance, Reliance Jio chairperson, Mr. K.V. Kamath. Thank you very much for being here with us. You know, it's an important year. We're going into general elections. We've had one budget where we saw some sort of fiscal consolidation, and we have the next budget coming up after the new government, of course, is elected. What are the big headwinds and tailwinds you think 2024 has in store?
No, as far as I can see, we have only tailwinds. The economy is in good shape. Growth has been good. Corporates are investing. The retail consumer is buying. Interest rates are stable. And inflation seems to be under control. So I don't see any particular headwinds. And if we keep on a steady path, we should achieve sustained growth over a very long period of 7 to 8%.
What is your broader expectation, though? I mean, with the government sticking to the fiscal consolidation path, inflation, like you said, coming under control, will we see a real capex revival? Because so far, a lot of the growth that we're seeing has been pushed by government spending.
I think as far as manufacturing is concerned, the capex will come from cash accruals. And the lead time to actually create incremental capacity is now down to probably 12 to 18 months against 4 years earlier. So they can press the pedal whenever they want. As far as infrastructure is concerned, yes, the government had put the its foot down to the pedal, as it were, and that I think has started the capex cycle there. And as things get, I would say rolling, it is already rolling, and the private sector will come in.
You said there's only tailwinds for the economy from here on, no headwinds, but, banks are a reflection of what's going on in the economy. They've been in a good place, yes, but with the recent regulatory action on some of the financial entities, what do you think is the larger takeaway, larger message coming from here?
No, I think the regulator has very clearly shown that they would give a long, leeway to the banks to adopt new technology and do new things, but within regulatory constraint. And that is what has to be adhered to and respected. The banks by themselves are in extremely good shape. You had capital adequacy never at these levels, and you had spreads never at these levels.
That's true, but for the poster child of India's digital payments, Paytm, that action, non-compliance coming to light, do you think it's going to dent investor sentiment in the near term?
I think you've seen what the market is, how the market is behaving. I think the market has enormous ability to digest bumps as you go along.
One final question, sir. There's been lots of talk about whether the regulator at some point will allow conglomerates to hold a banking license. We just wanted to get your view.
The point is that we'll wait and we will see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kamath. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Okay, so that was Mr. K.V. Kamath. I'm going to toss it right back to Shireen, who's going to be in conversation with a special guest. Over to you, Shireen.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Joining us now is, of course, Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. He is going to be presiding over the awards this evening. Mr. Vaishnav, an absolute pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here. To start with, Rajya Sabha nomination, now pretty much a done deal as far as the state of Odisha is concerned, with the support of the BJD.
I already got the certificate.
Yes.
So this is a very good event. I'm very happy to be here. And the energy which is already visible out here is really I can feel it, and I'm very happy to see the entrepreneurs of India really moving forward, thinking of new capex plans, thinking of expansion. So let's go out and meet them.
No, absolutely. But you talked about capex plans, you talked about private investment picking up, etc. Let's start by talking about railways. You did have a significant railway capex allocation coming in this budget. Of course, we will need to see what the final budget reveals. But what's the sense that you get now as far as being on track to move ahead on those fronts?
Absolutely. For the fiscal 23-24, our capex budget was 2,42,000 crore, and we have, as of yesterday, we have already done 88% of it. And for the next fiscal year, we are having a capex budget of 2,54,000 crore. So it's the absorption capacity of railways has increased substantially. The expansion in tracks is now happening at a torrid pace of 15 kilometers a day. Last year we added one Switzerland, this year we are adding another Switzerland, and next year we'll be probably adding more than that. So that's the pace at which work is happening. So I think we'll maintain this pace.
On the mobile side, sir, a tariff cut was already announced in the budget, but there's also a view within your ministry that more needs to be done to truly attract large ticket FDI into the sector, more FDI into the sector. There are also reports of Google manufacturing the Pixel here in India. Yeah, so, you want to take us through what next we can expect on that front?
Multiple simplifications are happening already. For example, the simplification in the rates you have already seen. There are the other simplifications which are happening as we speak. The serious interest from the ecosystem partners, especially the component manufacturers, that's visible. They are coming, they are already talking to Indian partners, they are scouting for land, they are scouting for correct locations. And I can see that in the coming 2 to 3 years, mobile manufacturing will be a multiple of what we have today. So we have today about close to $50 billion production and close to $12 billion or $13 billion export this year. So in the coming years, we should be seeing at least 3 times this.
My final question, Mr. Vaishnav, outside of the sectors that you're directly looking at this point in time, where do you believe, where do you see FDI coming in outside of the sectors that you're involved with, and what gives you the most confidence at this point in time?
India has emerged as a trusted manufacturing destination, a trusted design destination. Our Prime Minister's conduct of foreign policy has been really, the way he has conducted the policy, the entire world today has placed its trust in India. So we can see FDI and interest across sectors. I can clearly see FDI coming in automobile sector, in tech sectors, in defense, in consumer facing.
Why do you think it hasn't come in yet?
It is coming.
Yeah,
we are already at 80.
Yeah, but we've seen a decline over the previous year.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
See, year by year, if you start comparing, then you are basically getting into the fallacy of immediate period, right? We have to look at the trend line. The trend line is we are moving towards $100 billion.
Mr. Vaishnav, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here at the EOY Awards. Thanks very much for your time. Look forward to more conversation with you. Well, that is Ashwini Vaishnav, the IT and Telecom Minister. We are, of course, going to bring you a lot more conversation from the EOY Awards. For now, back to you.